Hi, I'm Helen Sharp with the Knitting School in Seattle. And this next video actually came from a request on my Instagram feed. And if you haven't checked out my feed, you might want to do that. There's lots of great short videos and information on what's happening at the school. So just search for the Knitting School and you should find it. So this video is about fashioning on a 1x1 rib structure. And I'm going to be using Fisherman Rib, also called full cardigan, which has tuck stitches on both beds. And I just use that because it's maybe a little bit trickier because of the tuck stitches. But the techniques can be applied to any 1x1 rib structure. And I'm going to be showing both increases and decreases where you can see the fashioning marks and when they're right on the edge of the fabric. So my little sweater here is done in a fisherman rib or full cardigan where the needle layout is a 1x1 rib and you tuck one direction, one bed going one direction and the other bed going the other direction. So every row there's some tuck stitches happening. And I've made this little sweater to show you the difference between visible and non-visible fashioning. So both of these pieces are fashioned to the same amount, one rib each time. On this side, the body and the sleeve are both done with the decreases right on the edge of the fabric. So you're not seeing any fashioning marks in the fabric. On this side, I decrease in the same way, but I moved the decreases in 4 needles or 4 ribs on the body piece and the sleeve piece. And so you get this little path of deflected stitches here, and the linking goes very cleanly right up one rib. So it just shows you how adding those visible fashioning marks in does sort of elevate the finish of the garment and also adds visual interest. All of the techniques that I'm showing you with Fisherman Rib can be done in any 1x1 rib formation. So 1x1 rib, full needle rib, half cardigan or shaker, and Fisherman Rib. As well as half Milano, full Milano, and even some Ottoman stitches. You could use visible fashioning marks, although that would definitely be a little more challenging. I'm making a full cardigan here, sometimes called Fisherman Rib, which is a 1x1 needle setup. And I'm going to be tucking on the ribber bed going this direction, and tucking on the main bed going back this direction. And I've got my needles arranged so that when I'm moving this direction and tucking down here, my last needle is up on the main bed where it's going to knit. And then I've got the opposite thing here. So when I go back and it's tucking on the main bed, my last needle is on the ribber bed. So the end needles are always knitting. And I'm going to do 2 different types of decrease. One where it's right on the end needle, and one where it's several ribs in from the end needle. So I'm ready to do my first decrease now. I'm going to take off the stitches from the end needle and move them 2 spaces over. So I'm moving them to the next main bed needle. And then same thing on the ribber bed. I'm going to take off that end needle and move it down 2 needle spaces. Over on this side, I'm going to move 4 ribs over. So I'm going to start with that one, move it here. So there's my actual decrease right there. And then I'm going to move the other needles over. So I'm still doing just a 2 needle decrease. I'm just doing it several needles from the edge. And then the same down here. Move this one, this one, and that one, and push that out of work. So on this side, my decreases are right on the end needles, and over here, they're 4 ribs in from the end needles. I've got one here and one here. And I'm gonna work 6 rows between each decrease. So same thing over here on the left. Just an end needle decrease. So this is what I would call a non-visible decrease, meaning that it's not going to show up on the fabric itself, whereas this one is a visible decrease because we're moving the decrease in from the edge of the fabric. And I'm going to use a slightly different method this time. I'm going to use one of these little guys here, and because I want to move 4 needles, I'm going to set it up with every other needle like that, and then I can move them all at the same time. That's the plan anyway. And then same thing down here. And then 6 rows. I'm just going to carry on like that. I've got a swatch here that has 3 different increases. They all increase by the same amount, meaning in this case 1 rib on each increase, but they're using 3 different techniques. So down here, from like here to here, my increases are right on the end needles. These 3 here are done moving 4 ribs out on both beds and then filling the empty needles with stitches. And then the last ones up here are done by moving 4 needles out, but leaving those empty needles empty. And that forms like a little pointelle hole as you travel up the side here. So 3 different choices of increasing on a fisherman rib or any 1x1 rib structure. For increases, I am going to do increases right on the edge on this side and the visible increases on this side. So for the visible increases, I'm going to move 4 needles out 1 rib space, which is 2 needle spaces for a 1x1 rib on both beds. And now I want to fill these empty needles, and I usually go to the next needle in and try and grab the row below, the stitch from the row below, and put that on the empty needle. So there's the ribber one, and then here's the main bed one, and actually I've got a stitch and a tuck stitch there. So there's 2 loops going on there. And then over on the other side, I'm going to do something different. And I'm going to be increasing every 6 rows. First of all, I'm going to knit over to the side where I want to do the increasing right on the edge and bring up the next needle that is in sequence. So on this case, in this situation, it's a ribber needle, because currently the end needle is on the main bed. I'm going to bring it all the way up so that it knits. So that's row 2 of my 6-row increase sequence. And now when I'm back over the other side again, I'm going to bring up the next needle in sequence, and that will complete that increase. So that's row 4, 5, 6. So I'll do that again. On the right, I'm moving 4 needles And you can do them one by one if you don't have one of these little gadgets, although they're super handy to have. Now I'm going to fill that empty needle with a stitch from the row below. So there's one. And there's the other one. Now I'm going to knit across. That's row 1. Increase. 2, 3. Increase. 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to do an increase that leaves a little pointelle hole right where the fashioning is. And I'm going to do that by moving my 4 end needles out one space on the main bed. Same thing on the ribbon bed. And here's my empty needles. I'm just going to bring them forward to, all the way forward to holding position for the first row. And again for the second row. And that just forces them to knit instead of tuck. Make sure they get going. I hope you enjoyed that video. The next one is going to be about fashioning on a 2x2 rib structure. I would love to see any requests, questions, comments on the feed below, and please subscribe to my channel if you are interested in machine knitting.